We're so generous of people before Prophet I've been told to invite you to sit on the floor. We've got loads of goodies, one for everyone in the audience. You can put your bum on the floor there if you're tired. There is loads of room if you want to sit down. Look, it's great to have come from such a inspiring, refreshing, and I think driven march, because it's seldom that you get that sense of absolute determination, unity, clarity, and the ability for young and old, men, women, and for all sorts of types of people across society to unite behind one very, very clear, specific demand for a referendum to repeal the 8th Amendment, to get our bodies, our wombs out of the Constitution, and to finally see a day in this country where women can be trusted, first and foremost, can be trusted, can be believed, can be given the choice, and most fundamentally can have the right to say what they want to do with their own lives, because that's what it boils down to. 33 years ago I had an abortion, and it was basically about that. I wanted to make a choice about what to do with my life. Did I want to have a family? Did I not want to have a family? When I wanted to have it, how I wanted to have it, where I wanted to have it, and what that meant for me. And since then there have been literally hundreds of thousands of women have been exiled, literally exiled from this country to procure an abortion abroad. It used to be that we take the boat to Liverpool in the main, or maybe the boat to Holyhead and the train to London, but the idea that we had to leave our own country to attain a medical procedure that we should have been entitled to here, and that it didn't just happen in isolated cases, but it happened on average between 10 and 15 women a day. It is still happening, they reckon, to about 10 women a day who have to leave to procure an abortion outside the state. And then on top of that, we're not sure of the figures, but the guesstimate is between 3 and 4 women a day. And I'm only speaking about figures in the Republic now, because we do have to consider what happens 90 miles up the road in the north as well. But there are about 3 to 4 women a day who procure the abortion pill. So it is like abortion is a reality for Irish women. But Jesus, it can't be a reality in Ireland. You cannot have that. You have to shove them out of the country, shove them into shame, criminalise them, threaten them with a sentence of up to 14 years, or indeed any medical practitioner who might try to help a woman procure an abortion could face a sentence of up to 14 years. Why else do you think Savita Halappanabar lost her life? Because there wasn't any medical practitioner in the country who could have the knowledge and the confidence that whatever decision that they would make, that they wouldn't be criminalised for that they themselves couldn't face a long sentence in prison for taking a decision over that woman's lives. Now obviously there are other complications about hospital ethos, and this is another issue that's not unconnected with the right to choose, the control, but in the main of the Catholic Church over our health and over our education system. So we have a long way to go. We have a lot of rights to fight for. We have a lot of change to bring in the country. And all of the slogans that we chanted today, not the church, not the state, women must decide their fate, keep your rosaries off my ovaries, all of the slogans for basic rights for women and indeed men to have the freedom to decide over their sexuality, over their reproduction, over their future, over their lives. We are being squashed in by a system that was designed when this state was very, very young by a monolithic Catholic Church and a conservative, heavy-weighted Fianna Fáil, and they banded together to ensure that what was enshrined in the Constitution was that women were kept in their boxes, that there was control over reproductive health, that there was control over the future of our education system and over our health system, and that the Catholic Church were given privilege in Irish society in order to impose their views and their ethos on this country. So you have to fast forward from that to 2017, where we've been through, I don't know, I never really sat down and counted them, but there's been a myriad of church scandals and tribunals over the question of abuse by the church of young children and women in institutionalised care. There's been a myriad of scandals over the question of the abuse of women in Magdalen laundries, mother and baby homes. Most recently, the Choom baby home discoveries of the hundreds and hundreds of bones of young children and babies, you know, basically hidden away from the world in the most obscene way. That illustrates the sort of Ireland that my parents grew up in, the sort of Ireland I grew up in, and if you can imagine what was happening 33 years ago, just after the 8th Amendment was inserted into the Constitution. And when I say the names of, you know, Anne Lovett and Anne Hayes of the Kerry Babies and Sheila Hodgers in Drogheda, these are all monumental barbaric cases of women, in some cases who lost their lives, who were tortured by the state, who were criminalised by the state, who were shut out by the services, who were demonised by the Catholic Church, and there are more. And since then, there's been Miss X, there's been Miss Y, there's been ABC, there's been rulings by the European Court of Justice, there's been rulings by the United Nations, and still we're boxed into a society where the most conservative parties and the most conservative elements continue to tell us that we don't have or can't have the right to choose, in our own country. So we face huge challenges, but I have to say today was amazingly inspiring, encouraging, and a real foundation on which to build a challenge to the government, to the state, to the church, who are attempting to keep us in that in their grip and in that era of dark ages. Now, I don't think it deserves a special mention when you look at the current Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, the makeup of the current government, and the fact that we celebrated only 3 years ago, I think it was now, maybe 4 years ago, an amazing result of the same-sex marriage referendum, held, by the way, and let us not forget, on the 22nd of May, when the colleges were, students were still around. Now this kind of watered-down liberal, who was delighted to herald in equality for, and quite rightly, for same-sex couples, now this watered-down liberal is telling the people that his cabinet, his party, the government, and the people are not ready for what the Citizens' Assembly have recommended. And I remember, and others here will remember quite clearly, when we stood in the door looking for and fighting for and arguing for, listen to the people, we need a referendum on the 8th, they gave us the Citizens' Assembly. We argued against it at the time on the basis that it was a delaying tactic, it was a diversion, to say that 99 randomly selected people could give guidance to those who are actually elected, i.e. the Oireachtas, to create legislation for the country, that 99 randomly selected citizens could guide those into making a correct choice. We believed at the time that the Citizens' Assembly was there, it was recent, it was an election, and it was the Oireachtas. And by the way, I remember being campaigned and lobbied by the Repeal the 8 Coalition and other groups to declare where I stood on the spectrum of candidates, was I for Repeal the 8 or not. And I remember looking down through the list of 90-odd TDs, some of them who are now senators, most of them who are now TDs, 99 candidates or so, who said, yes, I am for repealing the 8. And some of them include people like Catherine Arda and other senators who are now saying, well, I'm not sure, I don't think they were there today. When I ask them to come to local meetings, they say, well, let's see how it goes, let's see how it plays out. And for me, what's at the heart of this is absolute political cowardice. It is not that the people do not want to see women to have choice. It is not that the people are not abhorred by the Savita Halappanabar case, by the cases of people with fatal fetal abnormality, by a child who was sectioned by the state and put into mental health care because she wanted to be able to go over, to able to leave the country to have an abortion. Something wrong with her. We have to make out that she's nuts and section her and keep her in a psychiatric unit. People want to see an end to that crap. The vast majority of people want to see an end to that crap. But the cowardice of the Leo Varadkars and the Micheál Martins and those who are in the driving seat of political forces in this country, they will not face down the conservative forces of the church and many of those who vote for them.
But I look around me today, and the overwhelming makeup of today's rally were young people. Young people who've never had a chance to vote on this issue, who didn't even have a vote when the X-Case referendum happened in the 90s. And that referendum gave us very limited rights, the right to information, the right to travel, which sounds now kind of bizarre and sort of almost like it should be something that they'll be talking about in Saudi Arabia for women rather than in Ireland. And when you look around you today and see they're now attempting to drive a referendum into the middle of next year, they're talking about June the 8th, possibly later, because we have to have the legislation sort of framed and ready to go and on. That will take months after we come back after Christmas. There's all sorts of parliamentarian, cretin, bureaucratic reasons why they won't give an early referendum to allow the tens of thousands of young people, and particularly students in this state, to have a say over their bodies and over their lives. Now, if Varadkar wanted to see an end to the 8th, he'd make sure that that referendum happened in May, as he did the same-sex, not him, but his government, the same-sex marriage referendum happened in May. That's when students are here, that's when they need to be out and able to campaign and vote with the rest of us for an end to this barbaric treatment of women. So I think we have a few challenges. I think there's no foregone conclusion that we're going to get a repeal and not replace. And we can debate that here, but that is the slogan of People Before Profit: repeal, do not replace. That is the slogan of the coalition to repeal the 8th Amendment, which has over 100 organisations, from farmers to parents to doctors to all sorts of very progressive organisations signed up to it. Why do we say that? Because if we replace the 8th Amendment with any form of words that allows any obfuscation or lack of clarity on the fact that women's health, women's wombs, women's reproductive ability, women's bodies have no place in the Constitution, nor does anybody's bodies or parts of their bodies have any place in the Constitution. So we have to be very clear, get rid of it, get it out of there. And then, if there's legislation or health regulation required, that's where the Oireachtas have to do their business. We want to decriminalise what's happening in this state to women. Therefore, we're going to have to see an end to the Protection of Life During Pregnancy Act, which was brought in under the Labour Fine Gael government, which allows them to give us up to 14 years in prison for being part of helping to procure an abortion or procuring one for oneself. So I think that's a big challenge, because it's not going to be automatic, and they will attempt to muddy the waters. The Pope will be coming in August. There's going to be a big cadenza for the family across the universe here in August, and in the lead up to that, there is going to be pressure on all sorts of people who, may be worried about this notion of floodgates. Believe me, there are floodgate merchants out there who talk about nothing else, and it's an interesting expression to say you would open the floodgates to women all legging it out to have an abortion. How bloody dare they? It is not an easy decision to make to have an abortion. It's not an easy procedure to go through. Why the hell would the floodgates open up? The only floodgates that I think would open up is that more young women would gain confidence to be able to control their own lives, to make their own decisions, to become more engaged in society, to become more political and more vociferous and more determined. And they don't want that. They believe that if they can control women, control women's lives, then they have a greater grip over the wider society and what happens in this country. I think they're also scared that if we win repeal, we look for more, and by Jesus we will. We're not going to stop that. We do want to see free, safe, legal abortion in this country. It's coming up to the 50th anniversary of the 1967 legislation that was brought in Britain. Never applied to Northern Ireland. I let Greta, who's going to speak next, enlarge on that. But the 1967 legislation is nearly 50 years old, and we need to see an NHS-style abortion service in this country for women in this country. And we need to see, we absolutely need to see the availability of the abortion pill, And on top of that, we need to see what the Citizens' Assembly call the ancillary measures. We need proper sex education in the schools. When I talk to young kids on my road about what they are told in school about sex, it's shocking. And an awful lot of teachers, and particularly in religious schools, don't worry about it, you'll find out soon enough. There is no level of intervention with young people to help them live open, healthy, educated sex lives. They have to learn it through porn or through online stuff or from each other. A lot of them are extraordinarily sensible given the odds that are against them. My two nephews grew up in Sweden, where they went to school. There's a nurse on site full-time, brilliant sex education from 10 or 11 years of age, and all the time when you're a teenager there's a nurse in the school to whom you can go to get free contraception, the morning after pill, whatever you need if you're facing a crisis pregnancy or you're sexually active as a young person and you're not sure about protecting yourself. That's what we need. If we want to respect our young people, that's what we need. We don't need mad bishops in Waterford telling us not to take the cancer treatment or the virus. They have it in their heads that if young people are exposed to good health and good sex education, that they do nothing, only go riding all over the place all day long. And maybe they will, but at least they'll be riding with education and health and contraception available to them. And the best of luck to them, by the way. And the church really do fear the outcome of this referendum. So the job we have, and it's not a job for inside the walls of Leinster House where the barbarians reside, who meet out the treatment to those of us outside. It's a job for all of us. And where we're inside roaring and shouting and giving it socks and going on the committee and being adamant about we need repeal, not replace, being adamant about getting an early date so young people have a right to have a say on this matter, we need feet on the streets, we need people outside, we need water-sized marches like we saw today, and we need more of them. And we need them more regularly, and we need them in every town, in every village, in every county. And I have to say, a big difference from, in the early 80s when we were fighting to keep the 8th Amendment out of the Constitution, is that you saw today well-organised local campaigns in places like Limerick, Ennis, Kerry, Sligo, Galway, Waterford, Wexford, Carlow, and they were all coming up to Dublin, all excited and delighted. They're all over Twitter on their buses, making their way up to Dublin. We didn't have that in the dark old 80s, because we still had the big heavy hand of the church, who hadn't yet been exposed as being the rapists and the demons that they were at that time. That they hadn't been exposed, they were well cahooted, they were well confident, and we cannot allow them to regain that confidence. Now, having said that, I get misquoted all the time. I have huge respect for certain people in the church who, feed the homeless and organise campaigns for homelessness and all the rest of it. That's not to denigrate individuals, but it is to say that no religious institution should have controls over our education, our health, our minds, or our bodies, and we need to get to that position. Our immediate goal, however, is to get rid of the 8th Amendment. And I just want to say very clearly that I believe that the demand for repeal, not replace, has to be really cemented down in this campaign. We do not want Leo Varadkar's government, which, by the way, they've already gone off in their own tangent and sought legal opinion from attorney generals and all these barristers as to what they could insert in the place of the 8th Amendment in the Constitution. They're already looking for a set of words that will suit their purposes. They're already doing this, despite the fact that they have us like Egypts sitting in a committee every Wednesday listening to very fine witnesses about why women should have the right to abortion in this country. They're going off doing their own thing anyway. So it's like there's a cosmetic exercise called the Citizens' Assembly and the Dáil Committee on the Repeal, and then there's the Cabinet, and there's the Attorney General, and there's them doing their own thing. So we need to keep feet on the streets. I cannot emphasise that enough. They do listen to people power. We've shown that through the water movement, and we need to really understand that this is the next step from that. This is younger, this is more dynamic, this has more potential, and it's an extremely serious and well-organised movement. In all our areas, we need to be in a local campaign, because one of these days we are going to have to get out and canvass and knock on doors and go through estates and talk to people. do stalls at the shopping centres, outside workplaces. And actually the interesting thing is there are lots of workplace repeal groups already established. There's techies for repeal, there's doctors for repeal, there's teachers for repeal, there's all sorts of trade union groups organising to see a repeal of the 8th Amendment. So this has to go into every sinew of society. I believe there's even a farmers for repeal now, which is an amazing thing. So this has to go into every sinew of society, repeal, not replace, and an early referendum so that students and young people can participate fully in this issue. Very lastly, I know Gretty's going to speak now, but very lastly, I'd like to plug the question of the rally for choice in Belfast on the 14th of October, and we're running a bus, and if we have it booked and all, and if we get that bus full, we can run another one, and we'd like you to come up and see me or Adrian or whoever afterwards if you're interested in coming. Gretty will explain the case for why we need to have our sisters and brothers in the north supported, just like they came down here today, why this is an issue across the island, not just here. But as people were chanting today, Leo in your ivory tower, this is called people power. And Leo has to hear that, not just today, but when Savita's anniversary comes up on the 28th of October, in every town, in every city, every county, we need a vigil. Remember Savita, repeal the 8th, do not replace it. And I look forward to seeing us all on big numbers on the streets again. And well done everybody today, genuinely mean it, because I know there's lots of parents here with children, that takes an effort. The goddesses were smiling on us today, they gave us nice weather. But it does take an effort, and it's an effort well worth it, and it's contagious. And there's more and more people getting involved in this movement, but we have to keep at it and drive home the message to the government: repeal, not replace, give us an early referendum. Thank you.
Brid for